Is he? I just hadn't seen him.
Was here.
So he's not an apology.
No.
And Vicky, is anyone? I think Vicky's around. So.
She was at DPR.
Eh?
She was at DPR.
So have we had an apology from her? Okay. All right. Well, perhaps if we just check with her if she's coming. If she's not, then we'll accept her as an apology. So would someone like to move the apology be accepted? Phil seconded. Same with Glenn. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Vicky and here's Glenn. So that's fine. So just put Vicky in brackets, and if she arrives, we'll have her as an apology for lateness, and if she doesn't, then we'll have her as an apology. And that's moved. Phil seconded. Tim. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And if we could move to the Akaroa Wairewa Community Board and welcome Pam Richardson from across the hill.
Off the block this morning.
Very good.
So I've just actually, I don't know whether you've got them, Leanne. I just put a few little notes together in the early hours of this morning as I walked, sort of before I walked out the door. So I just wanted to just remind us what Banks Peninsula is a little bit about. And I thank the Council for the opportunity to come along today. If we had a choice, we would say, let's stay as we are. The earthquakes have impacted on our communities, and more than ever at this time, we need stability and continuity for our communities. We have all seen and worked with incredible changes and feeling very weary with the constant change. The Akaroa River Community Board has been involved in a considerable number of discussions starting last year and then throughout the year. So we had special meetings with our communities, we had a draft that we put out to our community, and then we formulated our submission from that. So just remind us of what in the 2005 decision, when we were looking at amalgamation with the city and the local government, there was a local government reorganisation order, notice number 8126 that I have here in front of me, and this is the decision that came out of that. The Local Government Commission, that statement there below that talked about retaining Banks Peninsula as a separate ward. So I look at that and I think, well, what has changed since then? And I also think that the Local Government Commission did direct that this exception be looked at when we reviewed the Akaroa Wairewa, when it was being reviewed. But at that time, we hadn't had the earthquake, we hadn't had a number of things that have happened to us since then. So the Akaroa Wairewa Community Board is concerned that if we cannot come up with a reasonable structure for the Christchurch City Council, the decision made by the Local Government Commission might severely affect us and we will lose our identity. I would hate that decision to be made by the Local Government Commission and we're all split up. So we continue to ask ourselves, what has changed for Banks Peninsula? We've had the earthquake. We could even suggest that we've become even more isolated and continue to suffer the effects today. The repair of a number of facilities is taking time, and Akaroa continues to receive many cruise ship passengers. These cruise ship passengers continue to create issues for our community, and many believe that this industry has impacted on our local tourist industry. So there's been considerable debate around the new structure going forward, and getting the right population to that's required to fit that the need of all areas to be more or less the same size and practically with a population within plus or minus 10% of each other. So then I just carry on down there to outline a few things about our boundaries, about our geography. I talk a little bit about the isolated community that we still believe we are. And then at the bottom there, I just talk about a few more of those urban-rural issues. So then if we look just at our submission ourselves that we made, and I think they're quite clear and succinct moving forward. But if we are combined with Sumner, I wonder if we will ever have an elected member from the Littleton or even the Akaroa area, that it will be led by someone from the Sumner area, just purely because of population. They've got the numbers. So is that very fair on our communities, the rest of us, that we will never be part of that, or never be able to be a part of that process, unless we're whiz kids or we've got something eccentric about us and able to conjure something up with that community, with those particular community, or that particular community, the Sumner community, to consider us. So I'll just leave it at that, those few comments that I've got, but they're all there on there. All those things are very important to us, particularly the runanga. And them all being together. We want to work together. We already work together now, and it would be sad to disjoint them. So I'll leave it there, Leanne.
Pam, I'm sure that you've been following the submissions as we've been going through this process, and so perhaps if I put to you a leading question.
Yes.
If we were able to present to the, by way of our proposal that we notify, the retention of the ward boundaries as they currently are,
Yes.
With potentially a fallback position,
Yes.
then you would be supportive of that.
Yes.
Yes.
When you say potentially as they are, you mean as what they are? Are you presenting them to us now? With
No,
the Sumner
as they
or
are.
The old. Oh, look, totally. We've been working through that. It's been working well. If it's not broke, why not? I mean, if it's...
Well, I think our motivation has been to comply with what we believe to be the requirements of the previous decision of the Local Government Commission, but and not reflecting on the fact that membership of the Commission's changed, but actually reflecting on our obligations. We've been out there, we've consulted, and actually I have to say the Sumner people feel just as strongly about it as do the Littleton and Akaroa people. So it is felt very strongly on both sides of the proposed new boundary that it ain't broke, and that and so I think that gives us a pretty strong basis to go back to the Local Government Commission with a notified change that sees that. I mean, I'm not speaking for the rest of the council, but I think that we've all been impressed by the fact that it's not been a one-sided argument. It's actually been across the board. There's been the view that that this ward deserves to be separately represented. Phil?
Thanks, Pam. Can I just ask you, I'm assuming from your comments that you would agree with what the Littleton Mount Herbert board are also saying, and where they refer to that it's the Commission's guidelines 2014 that the Act doesn't require fair representation when that would prevent effective representation of isolated communities. So you would agree with
totally. And I mean, fair representation, it seems to be just based on numbers, the population. And whereas effective is how effective can your member work in your community? How can he network? How can he work with people? How does he understand the issues? So, or he or she.
Yes.
So, yes, totally.
Thanks, Pam.
Yeah, and I mean we are obliged to look at both, fair and effective, and I think that the case has been pretty strongly made on both sides of the hill. Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. Just two questions, and thank you for your submission. The first is, it's my understanding that since the amalgamation, there's always been a council elected from the Littleton Mount Herbert area, never from the Akaroa Wairewa.
That's right.
So the argument that you make about Sumner having having an elected councillor for the entire area, you can make for that Littleton Mount Herbert area as well, and the fact that Akaroa and Wairewa have never had council or elected from their component because of the population.
But we've worked very closely with Littleton Mount Herbert.
So
we've
what's the difference?
Very closely.
So what I'm trying to understand is what's the rationale for Littleton being separate than the rest of Christchurch City? Because that's what I'm trying to understand what the arguments are for Littleton to be seen as an isolated community and to have a different layer of representation.
Well, Littleton is part of us. Littleton Harbour is part of us. We think about Littleton Harbour because it's another harbour, part of Banks Peninsula, I suppose, is how we think about it. But if you're thinking about Sumner people don't come back this way. They don't understand about the ports. They don't understand about the coastal issues like the hill country, the rural issues. Littleton is more likely to have someone that will have a bit of a feel for that and an understanding of what those sort of issues are.
Right. Okay, so that's based on the historic boundary of Banks, of the old Banks Peninsula.
Well, no, it's not the
Council,
historic boundary. I think it's the natural boundary of Banks Peninsula. That's what it's like.
Could you merge the community boards into one? Akaroa to Littleton?
Maybe as a last resort, be very difficult. I might be dead. I mightn't take on the job. You know, it's, well, you know what the pressures that Andrew's put on under the way he operates. It would be an incredible pressure. And staff-wise, our staff have worked Littleton Mount Herbert, and it is very difficult and challenging.
So my second question was, if the council, and we've heard a number of submitters say, well, just leave Banks Peninsula as a single ward, if we went with that proposal, would you support us increasing the urban wards so that the deviation wasn't as great, which would probably have a greater chance of success in terms of arguing that, in terms of that fair and effective plus or minus 10%? So if we reduce the deviation in the urban area, recognising the peninsula separate, is that something you would support?
Oh, that sounds all right to me. I can't have... I don't think there are any issues with that. You're saying that the rest of Christchurch would look at it may have a higher deviation than what?
So having smaller wards than currently exist now,
Yes.
or maybe currently in a proposal,
Yes.
to compensate for the fact that the peninsula would be kept as it was.
I'm passionate about the peninsula being kept together.
Right.
Because it is a definite identity. It sticks out of the Canterbury Plains. It's totally different. So the urban area, it's about communities working together and communities of interest and making sure that they're all working together too, that they're not disjointed.
But I don't want you to be led into saying that unless you honestly believe that the people of Christchurch would be satisfied with an increase in number of councillors up to
I don't want to say
18
that
or
at all.
9. Yeah,
No,
and I think that's where we were being taken, and I think that's always a challenge, because it may sound like it's an easy balancing act, but actually it isn't, because the issues, as you say, on one side of the hill are quite different than they are over in the city side, and I think the city's reaction to a significant increase in the number of councillors, which of course they have to pay for, is always going to be a challenging one. Andrew.
Thank you, and thanks, Pam, for the presentation this morning. The question was just raised, what would your view of a Banks Peninsula Community Board be, rather than the Akaroa, Wairewa and Littleton Mount Herbert arrangements that we currently have? And you already mentioned travel times as possibly a disincentive for you to stand as part of that board, let alone anybody else. What other considerations do you think there could be or should be if we were looking at one community board for Banks Peninsula, if we kept Banks Peninsula together as it is, as one ward? What do you think the advantages or disadvantages of that Banks Peninsula Community Board might be?
All depends on who brings it all together and how it's brought together, the people that are involved, and how they can get on. Naturally in any situation you have to make the situation work. But I think, perhaps it may be that we need to see the use of more of new technology that will allow us perhaps to stay home and not to do the travel and do those sort of things to make it work. I don't know what other opportunities there might be to do, but we need to make sure that we've got people that are happy to work together and able to make good decisions, wise decisions on behalf of both sides of the hill. And of course I have got it because I'm a part of the Zone Committee, part of Banks Peninsula Conservation Trust, I'm part of a whole lot of organisations that can do it. But moving forward, it may not be so easy, but we need to make sure that we can speak on behalf of or work with both sides of if that happens. Not preferable, but it may be, do I dare say it, that it may be something we have to make work.
Yeah. All right, any other? No, that's all good. Look, thank you very much, Pam. Much appreciated. And obviously, the Akaroa...
Could I ask a question? I see my time's not up there.
Yeah?
When was the Local Government Commission, when was that Act reviewed? Why is there no opportunity to have much for discussion with them about what we're up to? Or have you had a discussion?
No, well,
So it was, I think it was last reviewed 2013 was additional clause put in, and there were very few submissions to
Were we
that.
part of that? Did we become involved in that?
I don't know, it's
To my
before my
I don't-
time.
Yeah. So whether we put, actually I could check that whether council put in a submission
Right.
to that.
So it's obvious that next time we need to be having a bit of an input or looking at it more closely to see what it actually says and what it actually means for us as communities.
Well, I think that perhaps let me just put a little fly in the ointment, so to speak, which is that if you look at the direction that the country's going in, it's amalgamations. So I don't know that it's going to be opened up for a further review anytime soon. And there is no appetite down here for further amalgamations. We've had an interesting conversation, about, whether the amalgamation with, the original decision to separate Littleton from the city, whether that was the right decision, and then ultimately whether Banks Peninsula Council amalgamated with the right council. Or whether it should have been split. There's been discussion around all of these issues over the last few days.
The cruise ships have come through Akaroa through to Christchurch, so I still see that we're a strong link with Christchurch. That's where our
I agree,
allegiance lies.
and I also know that a lot of the people that live in Akaroa are also residents of Christchurch City. Who have a holiday home in Akaroa. So I know the connection very strongly, but in order to drive to that part of the constituency, if I go round through Taitapu, I go through the Selwyn District Council to get there. So there isn't a land link on that side that with the two parts of our city, and it just seems to me that the challenges that face a smaller rural area are in common more than the smaller rural area with the major urban centre. And we're right up against that challenge by having this very conversation. Anyway, so thank you very much for that. But as I say, the distance and the points of connection, they are what is driving a lot of this review. So thank you very much for your contribution. So could I invite Paul